They thought I was blind. My wife, my son, and a man I had never met sat 3 feet from my bed and discussed how to steal my $4.3 million retirement fund while I lay there in the darkness, bandages covering my eyes. What they did not know was that my ears worked perfectly. And I was already recording every single word. But let me take you back to the moment everything shattered. Day 3 after surgery. October 7th. I was lying in our bedroom on the 2nd floor of our home in Buckhead, Atlanta. The curtains were drawn. The lights were off. Dr. Patel had been clear. Complete darkness for the first 2 weeks. No screens, no reading, no light exposure. My retinas needed absolute rest to heal. Sharon had been perfect. 3 days of smoothies delivered to my bedside every morning. Gentle hands adjusting my pillows. Soft kisses on my forehead before she left the room. 31 years of marriage. And she still knew exactly how I liked my coffee. Or so I thought. That night, I woke to the sound of her voice. Not beside me. Down the hallway. The bedroom door was cracked open about 2 inches, something she had started doing so she could hear me if I called out. But that crack worked both ways. Her voice carried in the stillness of the house. Low. But not low enough. I need you to file the petition by next Monday. She was speaking to someone on the phone. Speakerphone. I could tell by the slight echo, the way voices bounced off the hallway walls. A man responded. Smooth. Practiced. Confident. In a way that made my skin crawl, even before I understood why. Do not worry. I have handled dozens of these. Once the court appoints you as conservator, you will have full control over all financial accounts, the retirement fund, the pension, the brokerage account. Everything. I lay perfectly still. My hands gripped the sheets beneath me. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I did not move. I did not breathe louder. 30 years of flying commercial aircraft had taught me one thing above all else. When alarms go off in the cockpit, you do not panic. You assess. You gather information. You act only when you have the full picture. Sharon spoke again. And he cannot challenge it? Not if the medical evaluation supports cognitive decline. The man's voice was almost cheerful. Which it will. Dr. Nolan is thorough. Add the anesthesia history, the age factor, the visual impairment, and we have a textbook case. No judge will deny it. $4.3 million. That is what they were discussing. My entire career distilled into a number. 30 years of 5 a.m. wake-up calls. 30 years of crossing time zones, missing birthdays, landing planes in weather that would terrify most people. Every sacrifice, every mile, every decision I had ever made, reduced to a target on a legal document. Sharon laughed softly. A sound I had heard 10,000 times, at dinner parties, during movies, in bed on lazy Sunday mornings. But this version of that laugh had an edge to it, a coldness I had never noticed before, or maybe I had never listened closely enough. He still thinks I am taking care of him, she said. Brings him smoothies every morning. Checks his bandages. He is completely dependent on me right now. He cannot even see his own hand in front of his face. The man chuckled. Perfect conditions. And your son? He is on board? That is when the third voice came through the speaker. A voice I had known since its first cry in a delivery room 28 years ago. Derek. I am in, Dad, Derek said. Just tell me what documents you need from his office. I can get them when I visit tomorrow. My son. My only child. The boy I had taught to ride a bike on the cul-de-sac outside this very house. The teenager I had driven to college orientation. The young man I had hugged at his graduation. Pride swelling in my chest like turbulence. He was in on it. Sharon's voice came back. Businesslike now. Victor says we need his social security card. The original retirement paperwork. And any bank statements from the last 6 months. Can you get those without him noticing? He is blind, Mom. He will not notice anything. They laughed. All 3 of them. my wife, my son, and this man named Victor, laughing at my helplessness, at my trust, at 31 years of marriage and 28 years of fatherhood reduced to a punchline. I lay in that bed, in complete darkness, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. Something that had been built over 3 decades of trust and loyalty and love. Something that cracked, silently, completely, in the space between one breath and the next. They talked for another 12 minutes. I counted every second. Victor outlined the timeline. File Monday. Hearing in 2 weeks. Conservatorship granted within 30 days. Full access to all accounts by November. When Sharon finally hung up and padded back down the hallway, she stopped at our bedroom door, pushed it open gently, stepped inside. "Ray? Honey? Are you awake?" I kept my breathing slow, deep, rhythmic. The breathing of a man, lost in dreamless sleep. She stood there for a moment. I could feel her watching me in the darkness. Then she whispered something so quiet, I almost missed it. "Sleep well, sweetheart. It will all be over soon." She closed the door. Her footsteps faded down the stairs, and I lay there, wide awake, staring into nothing, and made the most important decision of my life. I would not confront her. I would not shout or demand answers or let the betrayal pour out of me like fuel from a ruptured line. I would do what I had done every single time an engine failed at 40,000 feet. I would stay calm. I would gather data, and I would land this plane on my own terms. Hello everyone and welcome. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a comment and let me know where you are watching from. I genuinely enjoy reading every single one. And just a quick note before this story unfolds further, some details have been slightly fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to real people or places are coincidental, but the message behind this story is meaningful and worth hearing. Now let me back up. Let me tell you how a 62-year-old pilot ended up lying in a dark room while his family plotted to take everything he had ever earned. I started flying for Delta Airlines in 1992. I was 32 years old, fresh out of the Air Force, with 2,000 hours of flight time and a hunger to see the world from above. They assigned me to domestic routes first. Atlanta to Chicago. Atlanta to Dallas. Short hops, tight schedules, the grunt work of commercial aviation. I did not complain. Every takeoff was a privilege. By 2000, I was flying transatlantic. Atlanta to London. Atlanta to Paris. 12-hour stretches where the ocean stretched below like hammered steel, and the cockpit became a cathedral of instruments and silence. I loved it. Every crossing felt like proof that discipline and patience could carry you anywhere. Sharon and I married in 1991. A year before I joined Delta. She was 28, a dental hygienist with a laugh that filled rooms. We bought the house in Buckhead when Derek was 2. 4 bedrooms, a yard with a magnolia tree, a neighborhood where people waved when you drove past. We were happy. Or at least I believed we were. The career cost us things. I will not pretend otherwise. Missed school plays. Birthdays celebrated 2 days late because I was over the Atlantic. Anniversaries where I called from a hotel in Frankfurt instead of sitting across a candlelit table. Sharon never complained. She raised Derek. She managed the house. She built our life on the ground while I built ours in the air. Derek grew up watching planes. At 6, he told his teacher he wanted to be a pilot like his dad. At 12, I bought him a radio-controlled airplane, and we spent weekends flying it in the park. At 16, he lost interest, started hanging out with different friends, stopped asking about my flights. By college, we barely spoke about anything deeper than weather and sports scores. I told myself it was normal. Boys pull away from their fathers. It is part of growing up. I was wrong about a lot of things. By 2022, I had logged over 28,000 flight hours. Delta offered me the retirement package in March. $4.3 million, $1.2 million upfront. The rest structured across pension payments, stock options, and deferred compensation over 15 years. 30 years of service, distilled into a number that made my hands tremble when I read it on the paperwork. "Captain Harris," my chief pilot said, sliding the folder across his desk. "You have earned this 10 times over. Every safe landing, every passenger delivered home. This is what all of it was worth." I signed on April 15th. My final flight was May 3rd, Atlanta to London Heathrow. 712 passengers across my career had sat behind me on that exact route. My co-pilot, Mac McAllister, was in the right seat that last time. We had flown together for 18 years. As we descended through the clouds over England, Mac looked over at me. "End of an era, Captain." I nodded, watching the runway materialize through the gray. Just the beginning of a new one. The crew threw a party at the gate when we landed. Cake, champagne, a plaque I still have somewhere in a box. Sharon was there. She had flown over commercial the day before to surprise me. She cried when I walked off the jetway for the last time. "I am so proud of you," she said, holding my face in her hands. "We did it, Ray. We made it." I believed her completely. The retirement money hit our accounts in June. I felt rich in a way that had nothing to do with dollars. Rich in time. Rich in possibility. Travel plans. A fishing boat maybe. Long mornings with nowhere to be. The future stretched ahead like an empty runway. Then the eye problems started. I had known about the retinal detachment for over a year. Dr. Patel had monitored it during my annual FAA medical exams. "Minor," he said. "We will watch it. Not urgent." But in July, Sharon started pushing. "Honey, you should just get it done now. Why wait? You are retired. You have the time. What if it gets worse?" She mentioned it every few days. Casually at first. Then, with more insistence, she researched surgeons. Printed articles about complications from waiting too long. Booked a consultation without telling me. By August, I agreed. Scheduled for October 4th. Now, lying in that dark room 3 days after surgery, I understood why she had been so eager. The timing was everything. A man recovering from eye surgery. Temporarily blind. Dependent on his wife for everything. Unable to read documents, check accounts, or see who was coming and going from his own home. She had not been worried about my health. She had been building a cage. Every concerned question about my eyes. Every printed article. Every gentle push toward surgery. It was all preparation. 4 months of maneuvering me into a position of absolute vulnerability. And I had walked into it willingly. Gratefully. Even thanking her for caring so much. The realization settled over me like cold water. Not a sudden splash, but a slow pour. Starting at the top of my skull and working its way down through every memory of the past year. Every kind word re-examined. Every thoughtful gesture reframed. Had she ever loved me? Or had I simply been useful for 31 years? A paycheck with a pulse. A pension fund with a heartbeat. I did not have answers yet. But I had something more important. I had clarity. And I had 30 years of training that taught me one absolute truth. In an emergency, the pilot who panics dies. The pilot who thinks survives. I was going to think my way out of this. The next morning, day 4. Sharon brought my smoothie at 7:15. Banana. Something sweet. And a faint bitterness underneath I had never noticed before. She kissed my forehead. Adjusted my pillows, placed the straw between my lips like I was a child. "Rest, sweetheart. The anesthesia takes time to clear." She left, and I became a listening station. For 2 days, every sound in that house registered like data on an instrument panel. Phone calls through floor vents. The garage door opening at odd hours. Footsteps that were not Sharon's pacing the kitchen tile. I cataloged it all. On day 5, she FaceTimed someone in the kitchen while I was supposed to be asleep. The old house carried voices through the vents, like a speaker system. That same man. Smooth. Practiced. The guardianship petition requires two things, he said. A medical evaluation showing cognitive impairment and a family affidavit attesting to behavioral changes. Nolan handles the medical. Derek signs the affidavit. Derek is ready, Sharon said immediately. He will sign whatever we need. And the retirement funds? No trust established? He has not set one up. I asked last month. He said he would get to it after recovery. The man laughed. No trust means no protection. Once you are conservator, everything transfers under your authority. The pension, the lump sum, the brokerage, all of it. I memorized every word. Conservator. Petition. Nolan. No trust. Each piece clicking into place like a pre-flight checklist. That afternoon, Derek called. His voice warm and concerned. The perfect son. Hey, Dad. Have you set up that trust yet? The one Mom mentioned? Just want to make sure everything is protected while you recover. The same question. The same script. Confirming I was exposed. Have not gotten to it, I said. Too foggy right now. No rush, Dad. I will swing by tomorrow. Bring you some books on tape. I hung up. Waited 30 seconds. Then whispered to my phone. Siri. Call Mac McAllister. 3 rings. Then the voice I had trusted at 40,000 feet for 18 years. Ray. How is recovery? Mac. I need help. I kept my voice barely audible. Sharon and Derek are trying to take everything. Some kind of conservatorship scheme. A man named Victor is running it. Silence. Then Mac's voice dropped into the sharp register I recognized from cockpit emergencies. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail. When I finished, Mac was quiet for a moment. Do not confront them. Do not change behavior. I am driving down from DC tomorrow. And Raymond, the smoothies she brings. Do not drink them. Pour them out. Do not trust anything she prepares until we know more. You think she is drugging me. I think you should assume the worst until proven otherwise. I hung up. My hands were steady. Pilot hands. Day 6. 2 in the afternoon. Sharon had left an hour earlier for prescriptions, but 2 sets of footsteps came through the front door. Hers, and something heavier. Leather shoes on hardwood. A man's walk. They settled in the living room directly below me. Through the floor vent, every word rose crystal clear. He is sleeping, Sharon said. Most of the day now. Good. That is the medication working. Victor. In my house. In my living room. Now. About Monday. The petition is drafted. Derek's affidavit is ready. Nolan's evaluation is Thursday. Once we have all 3, we file. Then his voice shifted. Lower. Almost clinical. And the eye drops? You are using the ones I gave you? Not the prescription? Every morning and night, Sharon said. Casual. Like discussing a recipe. He is not getting better. If anything, his vision seems worse. That is the point. The compound slows corneal healing, keeps him dependent, keeps him blind. As long as he cannot see, he cannot read documents, verify accounts, or challenge anything we file. By the time his eyes recover, if they recover fully, it will be done. My blood went cold. Not metaphorically. I felt temperature leave my hands, my feet, spreading outward from my chest, like ice water poured into an engine. The darkness I thought was medical necessity was a cage built by my wife. She was keeping me blind, deliberately. With a chemical compound designed to prevent my eyes from healing. Sharon's voice went soft. I feel guilty sometimes. He trusts me completely, Victor answered without hesitation. 4.3 million reasons not to feel guilty. Focus on that. They talked for 20 more minutes. I memorized every word. When Victor left, Sharon climbed the stairs and pushed open my door. "Ray? Honey? Time for your eye drops." She crossed to the bed. I felt the mattress dip. Her fingers tilted my head back. The dropper touched the corner of my eye. I let her do it, because Mac would be here tomorrow. Because confrontation now meant losing everything. Because a pilot who panics at the first sign of engine failure never makes it to the runway. The drop slid across my closed eyelid. She whispered goodnight, kissed my forehead with lips that had kissed Victor Hale hours earlier in my own living room, and I lay in the darkness she had built for me. The cage she designed, the blindness she maintained, knowing that every hour I endured, it was 1 hour closer to the moment I would tear it apart from the inside out. Mac arrived on day 7. He came while Sharon was at the grocery store, timing his visit to the minute, based on her usual Saturday morning routine. I heard his truck pull into the driveway, heard him knock twice. Soft, deliberate. I made it downstairs on my own, slowly, gripping the railing, playing the part of a weakened man, even though no one was watching. Habit was forming already. Trust nothing. Perform always. Max stood in the foyer studying my face. Behind the bandages, I could not see him, but I felt his presence the way you feel. A co-pilot beside you in the dark. Steady, solid, ready. "First things first," he said. "Where does she keep the eye drops?" "Bathroom cabinet. Top shelf. Blue bottle. Not the one Dr. Patel prescribed. That one is white." Mac was gone for 30 seconds. When he came back, he pressed something into my hand. "Your real prescription." I swapped the bottles. "She will use the blue one tonight and not notice the difference. But you need to start using this immediately. If that compound has been slowing your healing for 6 days, every hour counts." I unscrewed the cap and tilted my head back. The real drops felt different. Cooler. Cleaner. Like the first breath of oxygen after climbing through dirty air. "Now," Max said, pulling me toward the kitchen table. "Tell me about this, Victor." I repeated everything. The guardianship plan. The timeline. Dr. Nolan. The conservatorship filing on Monday. Mac listened without interrupting. The way he used to listen during pre-flight briefings. Absorbing data. Building a picture. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "Raymond, this is not a family dispute. This is organized elder fraud. And if this Victor character is who I think he might be, we are looking at federal jurisdiction. Wire fraud. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Possibly RICO if he has done this before." "You think he has done this before?" "I know he has." Mac's voice tightened. "I have seen this pattern in my work. Predators who target elderly or incapacitated people with assets. They romance the spouse, recruit a family member, use a corrupt medical professional. It is a system, and systems mean prior victims. By day 9, my eyes began to answer. Shadows first, then shapes. The outline of the window frame, the dark mass of the dresser against the wall. My retinas were responding to the real medication faster than Dr. Patel had predicted. I kept this information locked inside me. When Sharon entered the room, I stared straight ahead at nothing. When she waved her hand near my face to test my reactions, I did not flinch. On day 10, Mac drove me to Savannah, 3 hours south of Atlanta. Far enough that no one in Sharon's world would know. I wore dark sunglasses, kept my head down, let Mac guide my elbow like a blind man being led. The performance was constant now. Catherine Reeves practiced elder abuse law from a converted Victorian house near Forsyth Park. She was around 50, sharp-featured, with the kind of direct gaze that suggested she had seen terrible things done to vulnerable people and had stopped being surprised by them long ago. I told her everything. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving in quick, decisive strokes. "This is textbook conservatorship fraud," she said when I finished. They are manufacturing incompetence to seize control of your assets. The fake medical evaluation, the sabotaged medication, the recruited family member. I have seen this exact playbook before. How do we stop it? 2 tracks, she said. Defense and offense. Defense means we establish an irrevocable trust immediately. Move your assets into it before they file. Once the money is in trust, no conservator can touch it, regardless of what the court decides. Offense means we build a criminal case. Fraud, elder abuse, medical battery for the eye drops. And if this victor has prior victims, we escalate to federal. I nodded. Both tracks. How long? The trust can be ready in 72 hours. The criminal case depends on evidence. Recordings, documents, witnesses. How much do you have? I am getting more every day. Catherine studied me. Most people in your position would have confronted their families by now. Destroyed their own case in the process. You have not. Why? Because I have spent 30 years making decisions at 400 miles per hour, I said. You learn not to react until you have all the information. She almost smiled. Good. Keep it that way. On day 12, Mac called from D.C. His voice carried the particular tension I recognized from moments in the cockpit when instruments showed something very wrong. Raymond, I ran Victor Hale through every database I have access to. That is not his real name. I sat in the garage. Door closed. Phone pressed to my ear. Sharon was upstairs watching television. I could hear the faint murmur of it through the ceiling. His real name is Gregory Marston. Originally from Tampa, he has 4 known aliases: Victor Hale, David Crane, Richard Booth, Thomas Wexler. He has been investigated in 3 states: Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia. 8 confirmed victims, all elderly or incapacitated, all wealthy. Total confirmed losses across those 8 families exceed $12 million. $12 million, I repeated, and Raymond. Mac paused. He has been in a relationship with Sharon for approximately 2 years. Not 2 months. 2 years. Since before your retirement. Since before you even knew about the retinal detachment. 2 years. The timeline restructured itself in my mind. Sharon had not been seduced by an opportunist after my surgery. She had been recruited long before. The retirement package was not an unexpected windfall they scrambled to exploit. It was the target from the beginning. Victor, or Gregory, or whatever his name was, had identified my pension years in advance, cultivated my wife as an asset, waited for the right moment to strike, and my surgery had been that moment. Engineered. Timed. Deliberate, Mac continued. Catherine needs to hear this. I am sending her my full report tonight. But Raymond, this changes the scope. This is not just about you anymore. If we can build a solid case, we take down his entire operation. 8 families get justice. I stared at the garage wall. Tools I had collected over 30 years hung in neat rows. Wrenches, screwdrivers, levels. Everything in its place. Everything organized. The way I had always lived my life. And now I understood that the most important thing I had ever organized was about to be the dismantling of the people who had tried to destroy me. 8 families, I said quietly. And mine makes 9. I wanted to believe my son was a victim. That Derek had been manipulated the way Sharon had been recruited. That somewhere underneath the lies, the boy who once called me his hero was still there. Trapped. Frightened. Doing terrible things because he saw no way out. Mac destroyed that belief on day 12. We met at a diner off Interstate 75, 40 minutes south of Atlanta. Neutral ground. Mac slid a manila folder across the table without ceremony. This is going to hurt, he said. I opened it. Bank records. Transaction histories. Dates and amounts in neat columns. Deposits into Derek's checking account from an entity called HVH Consulting, which Mac had traced back to one of Victor's shell companies. $500 in February. 1,000 in March, 2,000 in April. The amounts grew steadily through spring and summer. 3,000, 5,000. By September, the total exceeded $90,000. What is HVH Consulting? I asked, though I already knew. Victor's operation. He runs illegal high-stakes poker games in Midtown. Private residences. Buy-ins starting at 10,000. Your son has been attending since January. He lost badly. Consistently. Victor extended credit. Then more credit. Then the interest started compounding. $90,000. Mac nodded. And that is just what I can document. The real number might be higher. Underground games do not leave clean paper trails. I stared at the figures. 90,000. My son earned $42,000 a year as a junior marketing coordinator. He could not pay this back in a decade of trying. Victor had not just loaned Derek money. He had built a cage around him. Debt so large it became gravity. Inescapable. Controlling. There is more, Max said quietly. He slid a second sheet across the table. Recovered text messages from a burner phone Derek used to communicate with Victor. I read them one by one. Victor to Derek, July 14th. Your father's retirement package is confirmed. 4.3 million. When the conservatorship goes through, your debt is cleared, plus 15% of the total. That is $645,000, Derek. Derek to Victor, July 14th. I understand. What do you need from me? Victor to Derek, August 2nd. Your mother is handling the medical side. I need you to establish yourself as a concerned family member. Visit regularly. Ask about his finances. Be the dutiful son. Derek to Victor. August 2nd. I can do that. No hesitation. No reluctance. No message saying this is my father. I cannot do this. Just compliance. Clean, willing, immediate compliance for $645,000. I closed the folder. The diner noise continued around us. Plates clattering. A waitress laughing at something. Normal sounds for normal people. Living normal lives. Mac waited. He was not coerced, I said finally. No. Mac's voice was careful. He was leveraged. There is a difference, but it is thin. Victor created the debt deliberately. Targeted Derek's weakness. Gambling addiction is a disease, Raymond. But the choice to betray you for money, that was conscious. I thought about Derek at 12 years old. A Sunday afternoon in Piedmont Park. October. The leaves turning copper and gold. I had bought him a radio-controlled Cessna model. Nothing fancy. Foam body. Electric motor. A $30 thing from a hobby shop. But to Derek it was an airplane. A real airplane. His face when I handed him the controller. Eyes wide. Hands shaking with excitement. The way he whooped when it lifted off the grass and climbed into the blue October sky. You are my co-pilot, buddy, I had told him. Kneeling beside him, my hand over his on the controller, guiding the turns. He had looked up at me with absolute trust. You are the best dad in the world. 12 years old. 16 years ago. A different life. A different son. Or maybe the same son. Maybe people were always capable of this. Maybe the 12-year-old in the park and the 28-year-old signing affidavits existed in the same body without contradiction. Maybe that was the cruelest truth of all. 2 days later, day 14, Derek visited. I was in bed, bandages still on, playing the role. But my vision had improved significantly. Through the thin gauze, I could make out shapes with clarity now. Colors. Movement. Not perfect, but enough. He sat in the chair beside my bed. I heard him settle in, the creak of leather, the soft thud of his phone on the armrest. Hey, Dad. Brought you those audiobooks I promised. Thanks, son. He talked for 20 minutes. Easy conversation. Sports. Weather. A restaurant he tried downtown. Normal father-son small talk, designed to maintain the illusion of normalcy. But underneath it, I heard the rehearsal. The practiced casualness. The way each topic circled back, gently, toward my finances. So, Dad, have you thought about what you want to do with the retirement money long-term? Like investments or anything? I could help you research options if you want. I played foggy. Have not thought much about it. Hard to think clearly right now. Maybe after my eyes heal. He paused. Then his phone lit up on the armrest. I saw it through the gauze. A text notification. The name at the top. Victor. Derek glanced at it. Glanced at me. Then pocketed the phone casually. No rush, Dad. Just offering. When he stood to leave, he leaned down and squeezed my shoulder. I love you, Dad. Get some rest. I felt his hand on me. The hand of my son. The weight of it. The warmth. And through the gauze bandage over my healing eyes, I watched his blurred shape walk toward the door, pull out his phone, and begin typing before he even reached the hallway. Reporting back. After the front door closed, I lay still for a long time. The house was quiet. Sharon was downstairs somewhere. The refrigerator hummed. A clock ticked in the hallway. I did not cry. Not exactly. Something happened behind my eyes that was not tears, but felt like breaking. Like a bulkhead giving way somewhere deep in the fuselage. Structural. Invisible from outside. But I felt it. My son. My co-pilot. Gone. Week 3 was when Sharon stopped being my wife and became my opponent. The gaslighting started on day 16. Subtle at first. Then, relentless. That morning, she brought 2 neighbors to visit. Barb Henderson from next door, and Carol Whitfield from across the street. They came in with flowers, soft voices, the concerned energy of women who had been told something worrying about a man they had known for 15 years. Ray, honey, Barb, and Carol are here to see you. Sharon's voice carried performed concern. I told them you have been a little confused lately, but wanted visitors. I sat in the living room armchair. Bandages on. Dark glasses over those. Playing blind. Playing weak. My vision was now at roughly 50%. Enough to make out faces through the gauze if I concentrated. But I kept my eyes unfocused. Stared at nothing. Hi, Barb. Hi, Carol. My voice came out thin. Tired. I am sorry I am not better company. Oh, Ray. Barb's hand found mine. Patted it gently. You just rest. We are just glad to see you. They chatted for 10 minutes. Weather. The neighborhood block party coming up. Carol's daughter's wedding. Normal things. But Sharon steered the conversation with surgical precision. Ray, honey. Do you remember I told you about Carol's daughter? We talked about it yesterday. You said you wanted to send a card. I paused. Manufactured confusion. I do not remember that conversation. Sharon turned to Barb and Carol. Lowered her voice, but not enough. This is what I mean. Short-term memory. He forgets entire conversations. The doctors think it might be related to the anesthesia. Barb made a concerned sound. Carol shifted uncomfortably. They were witnessing exactly what Sharon wanted them to witness. A man losing his grip on reality. A wife, bravely managing his decline. We never had that conversation. She invented it. Created a gap in my memory that did not exist. Then presented my genuine confusion as evidence of impairment. Elegant. Calculated. Cruel. After they left, Sharon hovered. More questions designed to fail. Ray. Where did you put the insurance folder I asked you about this morning? I did not have any conversation about an insurance folder. You do not remember? Her voice pitched with worry. She came closer. Touched my arm. Ray. This is the 3rd time today. I am getting scared. I said nothing. Let my silence confirm her narrative. On day 17, 2 more visitors. Jim Redmond, my former golf partner, and his wife Susan. Same script. Sharon whispering in the kitchen while I sat in the living room. He forgets where he is sometimes. Repeats himself. Gets agitated when I point it out. Jim studied me with uncomfortable pity through the entire visit. That evening, Sharon made a phone call she did not bother to hide. I was upstairs, supposedly asleep, but listening through the vent. Dr. Patel's office? This is Sharon Harris. I am calling about my husband, Captain Raymond Harris. I have some concerns about his cognitive state since the surgery. He has been experiencing significant memory loss, confusion, and agitation. Is this normal after anesthesia? I could not hear the receptionist's response. But Sharon continued. Could he be referred to a specialist? A neurologist, perhaps? I am really worried. She hung up. Called another number immediately. Victor? Everything is moving. I just called Patel's office to establish a paper trail. Now, when Nolan does his evaluation Thursday, it will look like we have been concerned for weeks. Multiple calls on record. Smart. Victor's voice said through the speaker. Layer the evidence. Make it look organic. I have also been documenting his behavior in a journal, Sharon added. Dates and times. Specific incidents. The neighbors visited today and noticed it themselves. That is third-party corroboration. A journal. She was writing a fictional account of my decline. Manufacturing evidence, page by page, day by day. Every invented conversation, every staged visit, every concerned phone call building toward one single purpose, convincing a judge that Captain Raymond Harris was no longer capable of managing his own affairs. On day 18, Sharon told me Dr. Patel had referred me to a specialist. A neurological evaluation. Standard procedure. After major surgery in patients. Over 60, she said. Nothing to worry about. His name is Dr. Nolan. He is very well regarded. I scheduled it for Thursday. The name I had already heard through the floor vent. The doctor Victor had arranged. The one who would write whatever report they needed for the petition. Okay, I said. If you think it is important, I do, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you are all right. She kissed my forehead. Her lips were warm, familiar, and completely meaningless. That night, I called Mac from the bathroom with the shower running for cover. She is building a case, I said. Witnesses, phone records, a journal documenting incidents that never happened. And she booked me with their doctor, Nolan. Thursday. Mac was quiet for a moment. Let her take you to Nolan. Play the part. Give him exactly what they want. Confusion, memory gaps, disorientation. The worse his report looks, the more confident they become. The more confident they become, the more careless they get. And meanwhile, I schedule you with the real Dr. Patel. Day after Nolan. Full cognitive evaluation. Sealed results. When the time comes, we put Nolan's fraud report next to Patel's real evaluation and let a judge see the difference. I leaned against the bathroom wall. Steam from the shower curled around me. My vision, nearly 60% now, caught my own reflection in the foggy mirror. Blurred, but present. A man in bandages pretending to be broken. 3 more days, I said. 3 more days, Mac confirmed. Then we start hitting back. Thursday morning. Day 19. Sharon dressed me carefully, helped me down the stairs, guided my elbow to the car like I was porcelain. The performance of a devoted wife transporting her declining husband to a specialist. I played every second of it. Stumbled slightly at the front step, reached for the car door, and missed on purpose. Asked her twice where we were going. Dr. Nolan, honey. The neurologist I told you about. Remember? I let my face go blank. Did you tell me about this? Sharon glanced at me with practiced worry. Yes, sweetheart. Yesterday. And the day before. She drove 25 minutes to an office park in Dunwoody. I memorized the route through sound. Highway entrance. Exit ramp. 3 right turns. A parking structure. The beep of an elevator. Dr. Nolan's office was cold. I felt the air conditioning hit my face as we entered. A receptionist greeted Sharon by name. First name basis. They had spoken before. Many times. The waiting room smelled like artificial lavender. Sharon held my hand, squeezed it reassuringly. Everything about her posture radiated concerned spouse. I wondered if she had rehearsed this with Victor. Probably. Nolan called us back after 10 minutes. His voice was professional but thin. The kind of voice that belonged to a man performing authority he had not fully earned. Captain Harris, please have a seat. I am Dr. Nolan. Your wife tells me you have been experiencing some difficulties since your surgery. I sat, kept my head slightly tilted, eyes unfocused behind the dark glasses. My voice came out slow, measured, as if each word required effort to retrieve. I am not sure. Things feel foggy. I cannot always remember what day it is. Nolan asked questions for 30 minutes. Standardized cognitive tests. Count backward from 100 by sevens. Name the current president. What year is it? What city are we in? I answered some correctly. Others I deliberately botched. Missed the date by 2 days. Hesitated on the president. Said we were in Marietta instead of Dunwoody. Small errors, consistent with the profile they needed. Nolan scribbled notes. Some concerning patterns here. Short-term memory deficits. Temporal disorientation. Difficulty with executive function. He turned to Sharon. Mrs. Harris, you mentioned a journal documenting behavioral changes? Sharon produced a leather notebook. I have been keeping records since day 4. Specific incidents with dates and times. Nolan flipped through it, nodded gravely. This is very thorough. Very helpful. I will include this in my evaluation report. Throughout the entire appointment, a small device sat in the breast pocket of my shirt. Voice activated. Recording every word. Every fabricated question. Every false answer I gave. Every complicit nod from a doctor who had already decided his conclusion before I walked through the door. When we left, Sharon squeezed my arm in the elevator. You did great, honey. Dr. Nolan is going to help us figure this out. I nodded. Said nothing. Let her believe she was winning. The next day, Friday. Day 20. Mac picked me up at 9 in the morning. Sharon had a hair appointment. 2 hours of guaranteed absence. Mac drove me to Dr. Patel's private office in Decatur. Not the main practice. A satellite location used for specialized follow-ups. No receptionist. No waiting room full of other patients. Just Patel, his equipment, and the truth. Captain Harris, Patel said, guiding me into the examination chair. Let us see how those retinas are doing. He removed my bandages under clinical light. The brightness stung after weeks of darkness, but I blinked through it. Patel moved instruments across my field of vision, had me read letters on a chart, track a penlight with my eyes. After 20 minutes, he sat back. His expression was a mix of professional satisfaction and genuine surprise. Remarkable. Your recovery is exceptional. I would estimate 70% visual acuity in the right eye, 65% in the left. Far ahead of schedule. At this rate, you could be at 90% within 2 weeks. I need that in a sealed report, I said. Official letterhead. Dated today. Witnessed. Patel studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. He understood something was wrong, without me needing to explain. Of course, Captain. Mac handed Patel a second item. A small blue bottle. The eye drop Sharon had been using on me for 19 days before Mac swapped them. Can you have this analyzed? Mac asked. Independent lab. Full chemical breakdown. Patel took the bottle. Held it up to the light. This is not what I prescribed. We know, I said. The lab results came back that same evening. Mac called me at 7. I was in the garage. Sharon was cooking dinner upstairs. I could smell garlic through the door. Raymond. The lab confirmed it. The drops contain a corticosteroid compound mixed with a vasoconstrictor. In combination, they significantly reduce blood flow to the retinal tissue and slow cellular regeneration. Essentially, they were preventing your eyes from healing. If you had continued using them for the full 8 weeks, Patel says permanent damage was possible. Permanent. The word landed like a dead weight. They were not just keeping me blind temporarily. They were risking making it permanent. All for money. My wife. My son. A man whose real name I only learned 4 days ago. I thanked Mac. Hung up. Stood in my garage with my nearly functional eyes and stared at the wall. That night, 10:43. Sharon was in bed. She thought I was asleep. I heard her pick up her phone. The soft tap of a contact being selected. Victor's voice came through just loud enough for me to hear. Nolan's report is perfect. Significant cognitive impairment. Recommendation for immediate guardianship evaluation. Combined with my journal and the neighbor statements, this is airtight. We file Monday. Monday. 4 days from now. I lay perfectly still. Breathing slow. Even. The breathing of a sleeping man. 4 days, Victor said. Then everything is yours. Conservatorship granted, and we drain the accounts before his lawyer even knows what happened. Celebration dinner Tuesday? She laughed. Low, warm, intimate. The laugh of a woman talking to her lover. I cannot wait. She whispered. This has been the longest month of my life. She set the phone down. Rolled over. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness. But it was not truly dark anymore. My eyes, healing despite everything they had done to stop them, could make out the faint outline of the ceiling fan above me, the shadow of the curtain rod, the shape of the woman beside me. 4 days until they filed. But I only needed 3. Catherine had the trust paperwork ready. Mac had FBI coordination in progress. Dr. Patel's sealed report sat in a locked drawer at his office. They thought they were 4 days from victory. They did not know they were 3 days from destruction. I closed my eyes. Not because I could not see, but because I did not need to look at her anymore. Thursday. Day 21. 72 hours before they planned to file. Sharon left at 8:45. Hair salon appointment downtown. I listened to the garage door open, her car reverse out, the engine fading down the street. Then, silence. Mac pulled into the driveway 6 minutes later. He had been parked 2 blocks away, waiting for her departure. I was already dressed. Dark glasses on. A baseball cap pulled low. Not because I needed the disguise for my eyes anymore. At 70%, I could see well enough to navigate the world. But anyone who spotted Captain Raymond Harris walking unaided through a parking lot would ask questions. Questions that could reach Sharon within hours. Mac drove. 3 hours south on Interstate 75. Through Macon. Past the peach orchards outside Perry. Down through the flat stretches of southern Georgia until Savannah rose from the marshland like a city built on secrets. Catherine Reeves was waiting in her office. The old Victorian near Forsyth Park. Tall ceilings. Hardwood floors that creaked under our weight. She had documents spread across her conference table in precise rows. Everything is ready, she said as we sat down. I have prepared the Raymond J. Harris Irrevocable Retirement Trust. Once signed and funded, these assets become untouchable. No conservator, no guardian, no court-appointed fiduciary can access, redirect, or encumber them regardless of any guardianship determination. She walked me through it page by page. The trust terms. The beneficiary structure. The trustee designation. Mac would serve as primary trustee with Catherine as backup. Not Sharon, not Derek, not anyone connected to them. The assets being transferred, Catherine continued. 1.2 million from the Delta lump sum currently in your personal account. The pension annuity valued at 1.8 million over 15 years. Stock options valued at approximately 900,000. Deferred compensation of 400,000. Total protected assets, 4.3 million. She placed her pen on the signature line and looked at me. Once you sign, there is no going back. This money leaves your direct control as well. You cannot access it without trustee approval. That is what makes it ironclad. You are giving up convenience for protection. I understood. A pilot does not get to fly the plane and also stand in the cabin. You choose your seat. I had chosen mine. I signed. 11 pages. My name in careful, steady strokes on each one. Captain Raymond J. Harris. The same signature I had written on flight logs for 30 years. The same hand that had held steady through crosswinds and mechanical failures and every kind of turbulence the sky could throw. Catherine notarized each page, stamped them, sealed them in a folder marked with the trust identification number. Now we fund it, she said. She opened her laptop and connected to the secure banking portal. I provided my account credentials. Catherine initiated the wire transfer, $4.3 million. Moving from First National Bank of Georgia to the trust custodian at a separate institution in Charleston. Different bank, different state, different jurisdiction, maximum separation. We waited. The transfer required dual verification. A call from the bank. A security code sent to my phone. A verbal confirmation of intent. I provided all three. My voice did not waver. 17 minutes. That is how long it took to move 30 years of my life from one account to another. 17 minutes to build a wall that Sharon and Victor and Derek would never breach. Catherine's laptop chimed. She read the confirmation. Refreshed the screen. Read it again. Transfer complete, she said. $4.3 million. Received and secured in trust. Effective immediately. I sat back in the leather chair. The office was quiet, except for the tick of a grandfather clock in the corner and the distant sound of traffic on Bull Street outside. Savannah sunlight slanted through the tall windows, casting long rectangles of gold across the hardwood floor. For the first time in 21 days, my chest did not feel tight. The knot behind my sternum, the one that had lived there since night 3 when I heard Sharon's voice plotting in the hallway, loosened by a single notch. They could file their petition on Monday. They could waive Nolan's fake report in front of a judge. They could present Sharon's fabricated journal and Derek's rehearsed affidavit. They could win the conservatorship, and it would not matter, because there would be nothing left to conserve. The accounts they planned to drain would be empty. The pension they intended to redirect would be gone. The lump sum they imagined spending would exist, in a trust they could not touch with any legal instrument available to them. $4.3 million. Protected, locked, unreachable. Mac leaned forward in his chair. One down. He looked at me steadily. But protection is not justice, Ray. They still tried to poison your eyes. They still manufactured cognitive decline. They still conspired to steal your life. Defense is done. Now we go on offense. I know, I said. Catherine closed her laptop. I have been in contact with Mac's FBI field office in Atlanta. Special Agent Torres is interested. They have been tracking Gregory Marston under his other aliases for 18 months without enough evidence to move. Your recordings, combined with Dr. Patel's lab analysis and Mac's financial documentation, may be exactly what they need to open a formal case. When? Catherine and Mac exchanged a look. Tomorrow, Mac said. I briefed Torres in person. If he authorizes the operation, we could have federal arrest warrants within 72 hours. Monday, I said. They file Monday. Mac nodded. Then we need to be ready before they are. I looked out the window at Savannah. Spanish moss hung from the oaks along the square. People walked dogs, pushed strollers, sat on benches reading newspapers. An ordinary Thursday, in an ordinary city. No one outside that window knew that 3 hours north, a family was preparing to destroy a man. And no one knew that man was sitting here, in this quiet office, building the instrument of their undoing. Catherine stood. Safe travels back, Captain. I will have certified copies couriered to Mac's address by tomorrow morning. Thank you, I said. For everything. She shook my hand. Firm grip. Direct eye contact. You are going to win this, she said. Because you prepared. Because you did not panic. Because you trusted the process. Mac and I drove back to Atlanta in near silence. The highway unwound before us. 3 hours of asphalt and farmland, and the slow transition from coast back to city. I watched the landscape pass through eyes that could see again. Trees. Billboards. Exit signs. The world returning in clarity after weeks of forced darkness. Somewhere in the middle of Georgia, Mac spoke. How does it feel? Like taking off after a very long taxi, I said. He smiled. First time in 3 weeks. We arrived back in Atlanta at 6:30. Sharon would be home by 7. I changed back into my pajamas, put on the bandages, settled into bed, became blind again, but the money was gone. Safe. Untouchable. And they had no idea. Friday. Day 22. Mac called at 11 in the morning. I was in the garage, with the door closed. Sharon was upstairs on a phone call with someone. Probably Victor. Probably planning Monday. Torres is in, Mac said. His voice carried the quiet intensity of a man who had just watched dominoes begin to fall. Full authorization. The Bureau has been tracking Marston across 3 jurisdictions for 18 months without enough to move. Your recordings broke it open, Raymond. Audio of a target discussing criminal activity in real time with identified co-conspirators. Torres called it a gift. What does authorization mean exactly? It means we have a federal case. Wire fraud. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Medical battery. And because Marston operated across state lines, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and now Georgia, we can add interstate racketeering, RICO charges. RICO. I knew enough to understand what that meant. Not just individual crimes prosecuted separately. A pattern of criminal enterprise. Decades in federal prison. No parole. Torres wants everything you have, Mac continued. Every recording, every document. Patel's lab results. Catherine's financial analysis. And he wants surveillance footage from inside the house. Real-time documentation of the conspirators coordinating. I do not have cameras inside yet. I know. Mac paused. That is Saturday's job. That afternoon, Mac drove to the FBI field office in Atlanta and delivered a hard drive containing every recording I had made over the past 3 weeks. 14 audio files. 2 video clips from my phone taken through bandage gauze, blurry but with clear audio. Dr. Patel's sealed evaluation. The lab analysis of the eye drops. Catherine's financial documentation, showing the shell companies connected to Victor's aliases. Derek's gambling records and text messages. Everything I had gathered in 22 days of playing blind. Mac texted me at 4:17. Delivered. Torres reviewing tonight. He says warrants could be signed by Monday morning if the judge agrees. Timing is perfect. Monday. The same day Sharon planned to file her guardianship petition. The same morning she expected to walk into a courthouse and claim legal control over my life. Instead, she would walk into a trap. Saturday. Day 23. Sharon announced over breakfast that she was going to the spa. A full day. Massage, facial, manicure. She deserved it, she said. It had been such a stressful month caring for me. You deserve it, babe. I said from my chair at the kitchen table. Smoothie untouched in front of me. I had been pouring them down the sink for 2 weeks now, replacing them with water and protein bars I kept hidden in my nightstand. Take the whole day. Relax. She kissed my cheek. I smelled her perfume. Chanel. The expensive bottle I had bought her for Christmas last year. She was wearing it to see Victor, using a gift from me to impress the man helping her destroy me. The front door closed at 9:15. Her car left the driveway. I gave it 10 minutes in case she forgot something and turned back. She did not. Mac arrived at 9:30 with a black duffel bag. Inside, 4 wireless cameras, each one the size of a shirt button. Battery-powered, cloud-connected to a secure server, Mac controlled through the FBI's surveillance infrastructure. We worked methodically. First camera in the living room, mounted inside a bookshelf between 2 picture frames. Lens aimed at the couch and coffee table where Sharon and Victor typically sat. Second camera in the kitchen, attached to the underside of a cabinet facing the breakfast table. Third in the hallway near the front door, catching everyone who entered or exited. Fourth in the dining room, covering the table where family conversations happened. Mac tested each feed on his phone. 4 crystal clear images. Audio pickup sharp enough to capture whispered conversations. These transmit continuously to our server, he said. Encrypted. Admissible in federal court. Torres has a team monitoring them 24/7 starting tonight. I stood in my own living room, looking at the cameras hidden in the bones of the house I had lived in for 26 years. The house where Derek took his first steps, where Sharon and I had hosted Thanksgivings and birthday parties and New Year's celebrations, where I thought I had built a life. Now it was a surveillance site. Mac put a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "Let us finish." We cleaned up by noon. No trace of our work. Every camera invisible to anyone, not specifically looking for them. I changed back into pajamas, replaced the bandages, and returned to bed. Sharon came home at 6:45 that evening. I heard the front door open. Her footsteps in the foyer. The rustle of shopping bags. She had been at the spa all day, she said. Or perhaps somewhere else entirely. She came upstairs. Leaned over my bed. Kissed my forehead. "How was your day, honey?" "Did you eat?" I smelled it then. Underneath the Chanel. Underneath the salon products and the facial cream. A cologne. Woodsy, sharp, expensive. Not mine. I had never worn anything like it. Victor's scent on my wife's skin, brought into my bedroom like a souvenir. "Fine," I said evenly. "Quiet day. Listened to some podcasts." "Good." She straightened up. I could feel her smiling in the darkness. "Only 2 more days, sweetheart. Then everything will be better. I can feel it. 2 more days." Monday. The day she planned to steal my life. The day she believed would be the culmination of months of planning, manipulation, and betrayal. She was right about one thing. In 2 days, everything would change. Just not the way she imagined. I lay there after she fell asleep, listening to her breathe, the soft rhythm of it. Inhale, exhale. The same sound I had fallen asleep to for 31 years. Once it had been comfort. Now it was evidence. Somewhere in a federal building across Atlanta, an agent named Torres was watching live footage from 4 cameras hidden in my home. Building a case. Preparing warrants. Counting down the same hours I was counting. 2 days. After that, this bed, this room, this house would be a memory. And the woman sleeping beside me would be wearing handcuffs instead of Chanel. Monday. Day 25. I woke before Sharon. 5:12 in the morning according to the clock I could now read from across the room. My vision had reached roughly 80%. Colors were vivid. Edges were sharp. The world had come back to me in layers over the past 2 weeks, each day revealing more detail than the last. I heard Sharon's alarm go off at 6. Earlier than usual. She moved through the bedroom with purpose. The closet door opening. Hangers sliding. The click of heels being selected. She spent 20 minutes in the bathroom. Makeup. Hair. The careful assembly of a woman preparing for something important. She came to my bedside at 6:45. "Good morning, sweetheart. I have a routine appointment this morning. Should not be more than a couple hours. There is a smoothie in the fridge for you. Will you be okay? I will be fine, I mumbled. Slurred the words slightly. Half asleep. And confused. The man she needed me to be. She kissed my forehead. Her lips lingered a moment, longer than necessary. A farewell disguised as affection. Love you, she whispered. The front door closed at 7:15. I waited 60 seconds. Then I reached for my phone and opened the app Mac had installed. 4 camera feeds, loaded instantly. Living room, kitchen, hallway, dining room, all empty. I switched to the front porch camera we had added Sunday evening. Watched Sharon walk to her car. Black dress, heels, briefcase I had never seen before. She looked like a woman going to court, because she was. Mac had texted at 6:58. 3 agents positioned. 2 vehicles. Eyes on your house and the courthouse. We are tracking her. At 7:32, the porch camera caught Sharon's car pulling into view from the street. But she did not park in our driveway. She continued past. Mac's text came seconds later. She drove to the Marriott parking deck on Peachtree. Meeting someone. I already knew who. 8 minutes later, a second text. Subject Victor Hale arrived at Marriott deck. They embraced. Entered his vehicle together. Now heading toward Fulton County Courthouse. I stared at the screen. My wife kissing another man in a parking deck at 7:40 in the morning, then riding together to a courthouse where they planned to declare me mentally incompetent. The banality of it. The routine. Like it was just another Monday. Mac's next message. They have entered the courthouse. Filed petition at 8:22. Judge Whitmore's clerk accepted. Hearing scheduled Wednesday, October 29th, 10 a.m. Courtroom 4B, Wednesday. 2 days from now. The hearing where Sharon would present Nolan's fake evaluation, her fabricated journal, Derek's affidavit, and the neighbor testimony to argue that Captain Raymond Harris could no longer manage his own affairs. 2 days. Exactly the time we needed. At 8:50, a car pulled into my driveway. I checked the camera. Derek's gray Honda Civic. He sat in the driver's seat for a moment, phone in hand, typing something. Then he stepped out and walked to the front door. I heard his key in the lock. The door opening. His footsteps in the foyer. Dad? You awake? I was in bed. Bandages on. Glasses over those. Propped against pillows like a man barely capable of sitting upright. Hey son. Come on in. Derek appeared in the doorway. Through the thin gauze of my bandages, I saw him clearly. 28 years old. Khakis and a polo shirt. His face carried tension around the jaw. Eyes slightly puffy. Either he had not slept well, or the weight of what he was doing had begun to show physically. He sat in the chair beside my bed. The same chair he had occupied on day 14. The dutiful son chair. How are you feeling, Dad? Mom said you have been sleeping a lot. Tired, I said. Everything feels heavy. Cannot remember things like I used to. Derek nodded. Sympathetic. Practiced. You are just recovering. It takes time. He talked for 5 minutes. Easy topics. The weather turning colder. A football game he had watched Sunday. His car needing new brakes. Normal conversation from an abnormal man. Then he stood. Hey, Dad? I left my charger here last time. Mind if I check your office? Go ahead. He left the bedroom. I listened. His footsteps moved down the hall to my home office. The door opened. I heard drawers sliding, papers rustling. Not a phone charger search, a document search. I reached for my phone. Switched to the hallway camera. Watched the feed. Derek stood at my desk. The top drawer was open. He rifled through papers with practiced efficiency. Found something. Held it up to the light from the window. My social security card. The original. He photographed it with his phone. Then reached deeper. Bank statements. 3 months' worth. He photographed those too. Then slid everything back into place. and closed the drawer. Identity theft. Added to the list. He returned to my bedroom 2 minutes later. Charger in hand. Must have been in the living room, he said. Found it. I watched his blurred shape settle back into the chair. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. A text. Even through gauze, I could see the name illuminated on his screen. Victor. Derek pocketed the phone. Looked at me. Dad, I just want you to know. Whatever happens, I love you. I really do. His voice wavered slightly. Almost genuine. Almost. If I had not seen the camera footage 30 seconds earlier, I might have believed him. Might have heard my little boy in those words instead of a 28-year-old man who had just stolen my identity documents to hand to a con artist. I know, son. I said. I love you too. The words tasted like ash. But I said them because the performance was not over yet, because Wednesday was 48 hours away, and because some lies are necessary to survive. Derek left at 9:45. I watched him through the bedroom window, walking to his car, phone already pressed to his ear. Reporting in. Mission accomplished. Documents secured. Dad suspects nothing. My phone buzzed. Mac. Torres confirmed. Warrants being prepared. Judge Morrison signing Wednesday morning before the hearing. Simultaneous arrests, courthouse, residence, and Victor's office. All at once. Wednesday. 10 a.m. Courtroom. 4B. They would walk in, expecting to take my life apart. Instead, they would find it waiting for them. Every recording, every photograph, every forged document, and fabricated journal entry. All of it assembled into an instrument of justice that would take apart theirs. 48 hours. I set my phone down, stared at the ceiling with eyes that could see everything, and waited. Tuesday. Day 26. The last full day of my marriage. Mac came at 10 in the morning while Sharon was at a yoga class. He spread documents across my kitchen table and walked me through the operation one final time. His voice was steady, precise, the same tone he used during pre-flight briefings when weather was bad and margins were thin. Wednesday, 0900. FBI positions assets at 3 locations simultaneously. Courtroom 4B. For Sharon and Victor. Derek's apartment in Midtown. Victor's office on West Paces Ferry Road. Judge Morrison signs the arrest warrants at 0830, 90 minutes before the guardianship hearing begins. He tapped the table. At 10 a.m., Sharon and Victor present their petition to Judge Whitmore. They will have Nolan's report, the journal, Derek's affidavit, neighbor statements. Whitmore will ask for the respondent. Catherine stands and announces your presence. You walk in. No bandages. No glasses. No assistance. Fully sighted. Fully competent. And we present our counterfiling, which contains everything. Dr. Patel's sealed evaluation, showing 70% vision and 0 cognitive impairment. Lab analysis of the eye drops, proving deliberate medical sabotage. 14 audio recordings of Sharon, Victor, and Derek discussing the conspiracy. Camera footage of Derek stealing your identity documents yesterday. Financial records linking Victor's shell companies to 8 prior victims. And the FBI's formal criminal complaint. I nodded. And the arrests? The moment Catherine finishes presenting, Torres gives the signal. Agents in the gallery stand and make the arrests. Sharon and Victor in the courtroom. A separate team picks up Derek at his apartment simultaneously, so he cannot be warned. I looked at Mac. And Derek? Mac met my eyes. Did not look away. Him too, Ray. I am sorry. I knew. Had known since day 12, when I read those text messages. Since day 14, when I watched him search my desk through camera gauze. Since yesterday when he photographed my social security card and told me he loved me in the same breath. But hearing it confirmed, Hearing the operational reality of my son being arrested by federal agents hit differently than knowing it intellectually. Is there any other way? Mac shook his head slowly. He is a co-conspirator. Identity theft, fraud, conspiracy. If we exclude him, the case weakens. Victor's defense will argue Derek acted independently, which fractures the conspiracy charge. Torres needs all three arrested simultaneously to prove coordinated criminal enterprise. I stared at the kitchen table, the same table where Derek had eaten cereal every morning as a child, where he did homework, where he sat at Thanksgiving, asking for seconds on stuffing. Okay, I said. Mac gathered his documents. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow changes everything. He left at noon. The house settled into silence. I sat at the table for a long time, listening to the clock tick in the hallway, counting hours. Sharon came home at 2. Cheerful, energized. She made lunch and brought me a sandwich in bed. Turkey and Swiss. My favorite, or what she remembered as my favorite from years when she still paid attention to what I liked. Tomorrow morning I have that appointment again, she said. The specialist follow-up. I will be gone a few hours. The specialist follow-up. Her euphemism for the guardianship hearing where she planned to take legal control of my life. She delivered it so casually, like she was mentioning a dentist visit. Okay, I said. Hope it goes well. It will, sweetheart. She patted my hand. I am sure of it. That night was the longest of my life. We went to bed at 10. Sharon read for 15 minutes, then turned off her lamp. Within moments, she was on her phone. The screen glow reflected off the ceiling. I watched it through nearly closed eyes. She was texting, smiling. Small laughs escaping her lips. The intimate, private amusement of a woman communicating with her lover while lying beside her husband. I could not read the messages from this angle. Did not need to. I knew the content. Last-minute coordination. Celebration plans. The shared anticipation of people who believed they were about to win. I thought about our wedding night. 31 years ago. A hotel in Savannah, coincidentally. The DeSoto. We could not afford anything fancy, but we thought it was perfect. White sheets. Cheap champagne. The sound of the river through an open window. Sharon had been 28. Laughing. Nervous. Beautiful in a way that made my chest hurt. We lay facing each other in the dark, fingers intertwined, making promises about forever. I will always take care of you, I had whispered. And I will always take care of you, she had whispered back. Now she lay beside me, texting the man who was helping her steal everything I owned. 31 years. Between that whispered promise and this silent betrayal. An entire adult lifetime of mornings and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays all leading to this. The last night. At midnight she finally put her phone down. Her breathing slowed, deepened, became the familiar rhythm of her sleep. A sound I knew as well as engine noise. I did not sleep. At 2 in the morning, I slipped out of bed. Carefully. Slowly. She did not stir. I moved through the dark house with vision that could now see almost everything. Down the stairs. Through the kitchen. Into the garage. I sat at my workbench. Pulled a pad of paper from the drawer. Found a pen. And wrote, Derek, I do not know when I lost you. I do not know if it was my fault for being gone too much, or if this was always who you were going to become. I know about the gambling. I know about Victor. I know about the $90,000. I know you photographed my Social Security card yesterday while telling me you loved me. Tomorrow you will be arrested. I will not be there. I will not bail you out. I will not fix this for you. You are 28 years old, and you made choices that 28-year-olds must own. But I want you to know that the boy who flew that model airplane with me in Piedmont Park, I still love that boy. I always will. I just do not know if he still exists inside the man who betrayed me. Maybe someday, You will show me. Dad, I folded the letter. Put it in an envelope. Did not seal it. Did not address it. Placed it in my workbench drawer next to wrenches and sandpaper, and the small things a man keeps that have no purpose except to prove he was once here. I would not send it tomorrow. Maybe not for months. Maybe not ever. But I needed to write it. Needed the words to exist somewhere outside my chest. I went back upstairs. Slipped into bed. Sharon breathed beside me. Peaceful and unknowing. At 5 in the morning, my eyes opened. No alarm. For the first time in 30 years, I did not need one. I was already awake, already certain, already finished with the man I had been pretending to be for 26 days. Today was the day I would stop being blind. Wednesday, October 29th, 9:47 in the morning. I stood in a hallway outside courtroom 4B of the Fulton County Superior Court. Catherine Reeves beside me, Mac behind us, arms crossed, watching the corridor with the steady alertness of a man trained to read rooms. I wore a charcoal suit, white shirt, no tie, polished shoes, clean-shaven. My eyes uncovered for the first time in public in 26 days. No bandages, no gauze, no dark glasses. The fluorescent courthouse lighting was harsh after weeks of darkness. But my vision held steady at 85%, sharp enough to read the nameplate on the courtroom door from 15 feet away, sharp enough to see the faces of everyone inside when the moment came. Catherine reviewed her folder one final time. Documents organized in precise order. Patel's sealed evaluation on top. Lab results second. Audio transcript summaries third. Camera footage, logs fourth. FBI criminal complaint fifth. 12 tabs. 143 pages. 26 days of evidence, assembled into a single instrument. How are you feeling? She asked without looking up. Like final approach, I said. Everything committed. No going back. She nodded. Closed the folder. Looked at me directly. When I tell the judge you are present, you walk through those doors. Steady, confident, no hesitation. You look at her. You let her see your eyes. You let her understand that you have been watching the entire time. I understand. At 9:52, Mac's phone vibrated. He glanced at it. Nodded once. Warrant signed. Teams in position. Torres has eyes on Derek's apartment. Second team, at Victor's office. Both standing by for the signal. 9:55. Through the small window in the courtroom door, I could see them. Sharon sat at the petitioner's table on the left side. Black dress. The same one from Monday. Professional. Composed. Her attorney, a local family lawyer named David Kendrick, sat beside her arranging papers. Victor Hale occupied the chair behind them in the gallery's first row. Gray suit. Red tie. The appearance of a respectable consultant present to support a concerned wife. Not a co-conspirator. Not a con artist with 4 aliases and 8 destroyed families behind him. Just a helpful professional. Derek sat beside Victor. Navy blazer. Khakis. Looking younger than 28. Looking like someone's son. Because he was. He was mine. At 9:58, Judge Whitmore entered. Everyone stood. The judge settled into his chair and opened the file before him. We are here in the matter of the petition for emergency conservatorship filed by Sharon Marie Harris regarding Raymond James Harris. Is the petitioner present? Sharon stood. Yes, Your Honor. Is the respondent present? David Kendrick stood. Your Honor, the respondent was unable to attend due to his medical condition. Mrs. Harris is prepared to present evidence of his incapacity. Judge Whitmore frowned slightly. I prefer the respondent to be present in conservatorship hearings. Has he been served notice? Kendrick nodded. Yes, Your Honor. He was served by mail and confirmed receipt. However, his visual impairment and cognitive state prevent him from attending or understanding these proceedings. We have a physician's evaluation confirming this. Whitmore looked at the petition. All right. Present your evidence. Sharon's attorney began. Methodical. Professional. He presented Nolan's evaluation. Read key findings aloud. Significant cognitive impairment. Temporal disorientation. Short-term memory deficits inconsistent with post-surgical recovery. Recommendation for immediate guardianship appointment. Then the journal. Kendrick produced Sharon's leather notebook. 43 entries, Your Honor. Documenting daily behavioral changes observed by the petitioner over a 26-day period. Memory loss. Confusion. Inability to perform basic self-care. Then Derek's affidavit. Read aloud. I have observed my father exhibit significant confusion, memory loss, and inability to recognize familiar people. I believe he is no longer capable of managing his personal or financial affairs. Then the neighbor statements. Barbara Henderson, Carol Whitfield, Jim Redmond. 3 people who had been stage managed into witnessing a performance they did not know was theater. Sharon sat through all of it with perfect composure, dabbing her eyes occasionally. The portrait of a devoted wife forced into a terrible decision for her husband's own protection. The presentation lasted 18 minutes. Kendrick concluded with a request for emergency conservatorship appointment, effective immediately. Judge Whitmore studied the documents, adjusted his glasses, looked up. This appears thorough, he said. However, I have a procedural concern. The respondent's absence troubles me. Even in cases of demonstrated incapacity, I prefer direct observation. Is there any possibility, Mr. Harris could be brought to court for evaluation? That was the moment. Catherine Reeves stood from the back of the courtroom. Her voice carried across the room clear and authoritative. Your Honor, my name is Catherine Reeves. I represent the respondent, Captain Raymond James Harris. And I can assure the court that my client is not only capable of attending these proceedings. He is here. Every head in the courtroom turned toward the back doors. Sharon's face shifted. Not dramatically. Not a movie gasp. Something smaller and more devastating. A flicker behind her eyes. The rapid calculation of a woman whose script had just been torn in half. Catherine continued. Your Honor, I move to present counter-evidence, demonstrating that this petition is fraudulent, that the medical evaluation was fabricated, and that the petitioner is engaged in a criminal conspiracy to defraud my client. The courtroom doors opened. I stepped through. The walk from the doors to the front of the courtroom was perhaps 40 feet. I covered it in steady strides. Back straight. Eyes forward. Hands at my sides. No cane. No assistance. No bandages. No dark glasses. Nothing between my eyes and the room except clear October air. I looked at Sharon. She looked at me. And in that moment, across 40 feet of courtroom floor, 31 years of marriage ended. Not with a shout. Not with tears. With eye contact. With the simple, devastating reality that I could see. That I had always been able to see. That everything she had built, every lie, every forged document, every drop of poison she had put in my eyes, had failed. Her mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. Knuckles white. Victor, in the row behind her, went rigid. His practiced calm fractured for the first time. His eyes darted to the exits. Counted the doors. Calculated distances. The reflexes of a man who had run before. Derek stared at me. Just stared. His face empty. Unreadable. Like a man watching a plane fall from the sky and not yet understanding he was on it. I reached the front of the courtroom. Catherine pulled out a chair for me at the respondent's table. I sat, adjusted my jacket, folded my hands on the table, and looked directly at Judge Whitmore. Your Honor, Catherine said. My client is ready to proceed. Catherine opened her folder and addressed the court. Your Honor, I will demonstrate that this petition is not only without merit, but constitutes a deliberate act of fraud perpetrated against my client by the petitioner and her co-conspirators. I request permission to present counter-evidence. Judge Whitmore glanced at Sharon's attorney. Kendrick looked at Sharon. Sharon's eyes had not left my face. She seemed unable to process what she was seeing. The blind man, sitting upright, seeing. Whitmore nodded. Proceed, Miss Reeves. Catherine placed the first document before the judge. Exhibit A. Your Honor. A sealed medical evaluation conducted by Dr. Rajesh Patel, board-certified ophthalmologist and Captain Harris's treating physician. Dated October 20th. 5 days ago. The evaluation confirms 85% visual acuity in both eyes and 0 cognitive impairment. Full neurological function. No memory deficits. No temporal disorientation. None of the symptoms described in Dr. Nolan's report. Whitmore read the document. His brow furrowed. Catherine continued. Exhibit B. Independent laboratory analysis of eye drop medication administered to Captain Harris by the petitioner. She placed the lab report beside Patel's evaluation. The drops contained a corticosteroid compound combined with a vasoconstrictor. Neither substance was prescribed by Dr. Patel. Neither belongs in post-surgical eye care. According to Dr. Patel's expert opinion attached to this report, prolonged use would significantly impair corneal healing and could result in permanent vision loss. Whitmore looked up from the documents. His expression had shifted from procedural neutrality to something harder. Are you alleging the petitioner deliberately interfered with the respondent's medical recovery? Yes, Your Honor. Catherine's voice was level. We are alleging deliberate medical sabotage as part of a coordinated scheme to manufacture the appearance of incapacity. She placed the next exhibit. Exhibit C. 14 audio recordings made by Captain Harris over a 26-day period. Recordings of the petitioner discussing the conservatorship scheme with co-conspirators. Discussing the eye drop substitution. Discussing the fabrication of cognitive symptoms. Discussing financial plans for the stolen assets. Catherine produced a tablet and played a 30-second clip. Sharon's voice filled the courtroom, clear and unmistakable. He cannot see what we are doing. By next week, every cent of that $4.3 million will be ours. The courtroom was silent. Sharon's hand moved to her mouth. Beside her, Kendrick had gone pale. He had clearly not known the full scope of what his client was involved in. Exhibit D, Catherine continued. Security camera footage from the Harris residence recorded over the past 5 days. She described the footage without playing it. The petitioner's son, Derek Harris, entering Captain Harris's home office and photographing personal identity documents including a social security card and banking statements. This footage was captured on October 27th at approximately 9 a.m. Then she paused, straightened, and delivered the final piece. Exhibit E, Your Honor. A formal criminal complaint filed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The individual seated in the first row of this courtroom, identifying himself as Victor Hale, is in fact Gregory Allen Marston. He is wanted in 3 states on charges including wire fraud, elder financial exploitation, racketeering, and blackmail. He has 4 known aliases and 8 prior victims with confirmed losses exceeding $12 million. He is the architect of the scheme before you today. Judge Whitmore stared at the criminal complaint, then slowly raised his eyes to Victor. Victor did not move. For 3 seconds, he sat perfectly still. Then his body shifted. Weight forward. Hands on the bench in front of him. The posture of a man about to stand. About to move toward the aisle. Toward the door. He never made it. 3 men in the gallery stood simultaneously. Dark suits. Federal badges now visible on their belts. One moved to block the center aisle. One stepped toward the petitioner's table. The third positioned himself directly behind Victor. Gregory Allen Marston. The agent's voice was calm, controlled, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. You are under arrest. Federal warrant. Wire fraud. conspiracy, racketeering, financial exploitation. Do not move. Victor's hands froze on the bench. His face, that smooth, practiced, confident face that had charmed my wife and orchestrated the destruction of 8 families, went slack. The mask fell away. Underneath was nothing. Just a man caught in a trap he did not see coming. The second agent stepped to Sharon. Sharon Marie Harris, you are under arrest. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Elder financial exploitation. Medical battery. Sharon turned to me. Her eyes were wide. Not angry. Not defiant. Stunned. The look of someone who had been so certain of their plan that its collapse felt like a violation of physics, like gravity reversing. Ray, she said. One word. My name. Spoken the same way she had said it 10,000 times over 31 years. At dinner, in bed, across crowded rooms. But this time it carried something else. Recognition. The sudden, terrible understanding that I had been awake the entire time. That every smoothie she brought, every eye drop she administered, every whispered goodnight, I had been watching, listening, recording, building. The third agent took Victor by the arm, stood him up, cuffed him. Victor said nothing, made no protest. His body moved with the compliance of a man who had calculated the odds and found them 0. Sharon was cuffed next. She did not resist. Did not speak again. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine as the agent guided her hands behind her back. The click of metal closing around her wrists echoed in the silent courtroom. At that same moment, I knew. A team was entering Derek's apartment in Midtown. He would be at his kitchen table, or maybe still in bed. He would open the door to federal agents with badges and a warrant. He would understand in an instant that it was over, that his father had known everything. Judge Whitmore banged his gavel once. This hearing is suspended. He looked at me across the courtroom. Captain Harris, are you all right? Yes, Your Honor, I said. For the first time in a month, I am fine. The courtroom erupted. Kendrick was speaking rapidly to the agents, distancing himself from his client. Reporters in the back row were on their phones. The gallery buzzed with shocked murmuring, but I sat still, hands folded, eyes forward, watching Sharon being led toward the side door that connected to the holding cells. Before we continue with what happened next, I want to pause and ask you something. If you were in my position, sitting in that courtroom watching your wife of 31 years being led away in handcuffs, what would you feel? Drop a comment below. And if you are invested in this story, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next is the hardest part. Not the victory, the aftermath. And please note, some details in this story may be fictionalized for illustrative purposes. Sharon disappeared through the door. The last thing I saw was her left hand, the wedding ring still on her finger, catching the courtroom light one final time before the door closed behind her. 3:17 in the afternoon. Fulton County Police Station. Processing wing. Second floor. Mac drove me there after the courtroom cleared. We did not speak during the ride. The adrenaline had faded. What replaced it was not satisfaction or relief. It was a heaviness. The kind that settles into your bones after a long flight through turbulent weather. You are glad to be on the ground. But the shaking has not stopped yet. Catherine had arranged it through Agent Torres. 5 minutes. Supervised. On camera. A courtesy extended to the victim before formal booking procedures began. I did not have to go. Catherine said as much in the elevator. You owe her nothing, Raymond. You can walk away right now and never look at her again. I know, I said. But I need her to know that I know. Not through lawyers. Not through documents. Face to face. The room was small. Gray walls. Metal table bolted to the floor. 2 chairs on each side. A camera in the upper corner. Red light blinking. The kind of room where lives change direction permanently. Sharon sat on the far side. Handcuffs removed for the interview, but a uniformed officer stood by the door. She looked smaller than she had in the courtroom. The composure was gone. Her makeup had run, mascara in thin lines down both cheeks. Her hair, so carefully arranged this morning for her performance as the devoted wife, had come loose on one side. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes found mine immediately. Searching, calculating even now, trying to read me the way she had read me for 31 years, trying to find the angle. I sat across from her, placed a folder on the table between us, said nothing for a moment. Let the silence fill the space. You can see, she said. Her voice was hoarse, quiet. You could see this whole time. Not the whole time, I said. It took about a week after I switched the eye drops back to the real prescription. The ones Dr. Patel actually prescribed. Not the ones Victor gave you. Her jaw tightened. I opened the folder. Slid the first page across the table. June 14th. Victor Hale, also known as Gregory Marston, began a romantic relationship with you. 2 years before my surgery. Before my retirement. Before any of this. She stared at the page. A photograph. Her and Victor at a restaurant. Laughing. His hand covering hers on the table. Surveillance timestamp in the corner. July through September. I slid more pages. You encouraged me to schedule surgery earlier than necessary. Created the conditions for dependency. Accepted a compound from Victor designed to prevent my eyes from healing. Another page. Lab results. The chemical breakdown. The expert opinion on potential permanent damage. October 7th through 26th. I continued sliding pages. You administered that compound daily. You manufactured evidence of cognitive decline. You recruited neighbors as unwitting witnesses. You created a fabricated journal. You coached our son to steal my identity documents. Each page a nail. Each document a fact she could not argue against. Could not charm away. Could not rewrite. Sharon's hands lay flat on the table. Trembling. Not dramatically. Small vibrations. The involuntary response of a body under extreme stress. How much did you hear? She whispered. Everything, I said. Every phone call. Every conversation with Victor in our living room. Every time you discussed the timeline, the petition, the money. I recorded it all. 14 files. The FBI has had them for a week. She closed her eyes. Tears slid from beneath her lashes. Not performance tears. These were different. The tears of someone confronting the full scope of their failure. Not remorse for what she did. Grief for getting caught. Ray. She opened her eyes. Looked at me with something I could not quite name. I loved you once. I did. In the beginning. I held her gaze. That is what makes this worse. Silence. The clock on the wall ticked. The officer by the door shifted his weight. When did you stop? I asked. Not because I needed the answer. Because I wanted her to hear herself say it. She looked away. At the wall. At the table. At her own hands. I do not know, she said. I do not know when it changed. It was so gradual. You were gone so much. Flying. Always flying. And then Victor was there. And he made me feel seen. Seen, I repeated. He made you feel seen. And for that, you were willing to blind me permanently. She flinched. The word landed exactly where I aimed it. I closed the folder. Tucked it under my arm. Stood. What about Derek? She asked. Her voice cracked. Have you talked to him? No, I said. And I will not. Not today. From my jacket pocket I produced the envelope. The letter I had written at 2 a.m. in my garage. I set it on the table. Give this to his attorney. It is for Derek. When he is ready to read it. Sharon looked at the envelope. Then at me. Ray. Please. He is your son. He was my son. I said. Then he photographed my social security card and handed it to a con artist. Those are different things. I turned toward the door, knocked once. The officer opened it. Behind me, Sharon spoke one last time. I am sorry. 2 words. Simple, small, carried across a metal table in a police station interview room. They hung in the air between us. 2 words that were supposed to carry the weight of 31 years of marriage, 2 years of betrayal, 26 days of poison and lies and conspiracy. They were not enough. Nothing she could say would be enough. No combination of words in any language could bridge the distance between what we had been and what she had done. I did not turn around. The door closed behind me. The lock clicked, and I walked down the hallway of the Fulton County Police Station with my folder under my arm, and my vision clear, and my chest hollow in a way that would not fill for a very long time. Catherine was waiting at the end of the hall. She studied my face but did not ask how it went. She was too experienced for that. She simply fell into step beside me as we walked toward the elevator. Mac was in the lobby. He looked up when the elevator opened, read my expression in half a second, nodded once. We walked out into the October afternoon. The sun was still high. The air was warm. Cars moved through the parking lot. Normal people, going about normal lives, unaware that 3 floors above them, a woman was being booked for crimes she committed against the man she had promised to love forever. "Are you okay?" Mac asked. I thought about the question. Really considered it. "No," I said. "But I am alive. And right now, that is enough." The trial began 4 months later. February. Atlanta in winter. Cold rain against courthouse windows. Bare trees lining the streets. Outside Fulton County Superior Court. I attended every day. Sat behind the prosecution table in the same charcoal suit I had worn to the guardianship hearing. Catherine beside me. Mac in the row behind. The same positions. The same steadiness. A formation that had held through everything. The federal case against Victor, or Gregory Marston, as the indictment named him, was tried separately in a federal courthouse downtown. But Sharon and Derek faced state charges in Judge Whitmore's court, the same courtroom where they had tried to take my life apart. Now it would take apart theirs. Prosecutor Nathan Webb built the case methodically, day by day, witness by witness. The architecture of conspiracy laid bare under fluorescent lights. Dr. Patel testified first. Described the eye drops, the compound, the expected damage from prolonged use. His voice was clinical, precise. But when Webb asked whether continued administration could have resulted in permanent blindness, Patel paused, looked at me, then said, "Yes. Another 4 to 6 weeks, and the damage would likely have been irreversible." The audio recordings played next. Sharon's voice filling the courtroom, discussing timelines, discussing money, discussing my blindness as an asset to be exploited. The jury listened in absolute silence. Camera footage from the house. Derek entering my office, opening drawers, photographing documents. The timestamp clear, the face unmistakable. Mike Torres, the FBI agent, presented the financial evidence. Shell companies, wire transfers. The connection between Victor's aliases and 8 prior victims across 4 states. A pattern spanning 7 years. $12 million stolen from elderly and vulnerable people who trusted the wrong person. Then the other victims testified. 8 families. One by one. A 73-year-old widow from Tampa whose entire retirement savings disappeared into one of Victor's entities. A 68-year-old stroke survivor from Raleigh whose daughter had been recruited the same way Derek was. A retired teacher from Richmond who lost her home. Each story was mine. Different names, different cities. The same predator, the same playbook, the same devastation. Sharon's defense attorney attempted to argue diminished responsibility. She was manipulated by a professional con artist, he said. She was a victim herself. Webb demolished it in cross-examination, playing recordings where Sharon laughed about my helplessness, where she discussed the eye drops without hesitation, where she told Victor she felt guilty sometimes, and he reminded her of 4.3 million reasons not to. The jury watched Sharon's face as her own words played back to her. She stared at the table, did not look up. Derek's attorney tried a different approach. My client is 28 years old. He was financially desperate, in debt to a predator who exploited his gambling addiction. He was coerced through leverage and fear. Webb responded with the text messages. Derek's willing participation documented in his own words. I can do that. No hesitation. No protest. Just compliance for $645,000. Judge Whitmore addressed Derek's attorney directly. He was 28, a legal adult. He sat beside a con artist and agreed to help steal from his own father. That is not coercion. That is a choice. On the final day of trial, I delivered my victim impact statement. I stood at the podium, looked at the jury, did not look at Sharon or Derek. For 30 years, I flew airplanes, I said. I kept 700 people safe on every flight. I trusted my instruments. I trusted my training. And when I came home, I trusted my family. That trust was the foundation of my life. My wife destroyed it for money. My son sold it for gambling debts. A stranger orchestrated it for profit. I am not standing here for revenge. I am standing here because actions have consequences. Because people who poison their husbands and steal from their fathers and prey on the elderly need to understand that there is a system designed to hold them accountable. I am asking this court to use it. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Both defendants. Every charge. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. March. The courtroom packed again. Reporters. Families of other victims. The public gallery full. Judge Whitmore addressed Sharon first. Mrs. Harris, you engaged in a sustained campaign of deception, medical sabotage, and financial conspiracy against your husband. You administered a harmful substance to his eyes daily for nearly a month. You manufactured false evidence of cognitive decline. You conspired to seize legal control of his assets. This court sentences you to 18 years in state prison. Parole eligibility after 15 years. Sharon stood motionless, made no sound. Her attorney placed a hand on her arm. She did not react. Whitmore turned to Derek. Mr. Harris, you participated willingly in a conspiracy to defraud your own father. You provided false affidavits. You stole identity documents. You acted as an informant for a criminal enterprise targeting your own family. I sentence you to 10 years in state prison. Parole eligibility after 8 years. Derek's head dropped. His shoulders shook once, then stilled. In federal court the following week, Gregory Allen Marston received his sentence. 35 years. No parole. RICO conviction. 9 victim families represented in the courtroom. When the judge announced the sentence, the gallery erupted. Not cheering. Something quieter. Relief. Exhaled. Breath held for months. Years. For some. The widow from Tampa wept. The stroke survivor from Raleigh nodded slowly. The retired teacher from Richmond closed her eyes and whispered something I could not hear. I sat among them. One of 9. Connected by a predator who had moved through our lives like a disease, taking everything soft and trusting and turning it into profit. After sentencing, Mac met me outside the federal courthouse. We stood on the steps in pale March sunlight. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Where to, Captain? He finally asked. I looked up at the sky. Clear blue. A single contrail stretching east to west at 40,000 feet. Someone up there flying the route I used to fly. Carrying passengers home. Somewhere I can see the horizon. I said. Mac nodded. put his hand on my shoulder. Squeezed once. We walked to the car. Left the courthouse behind. Left Atlanta behind. Left everything behind except what could not be taken. The truth, the clarity, and the long, difficult road toward whatever came next. I found the horizon in Montana. 6 months after the trial, I sold the house in Buckhead. $890,000 to a young couple relocating from Denver. They had a toddler, a golden retriever, the kind of family that fills a house with noise and warmth and new memories to replace the ones rotting in the walls. I took nothing from it except my clothes, my woodworking tools, and a single box of items I could not yet bring myself to open. The rest I left or donated. Furniture, dishes, 31 years of accumulated domesticity that meant nothing without the life it was supposed to represent. The ranch sat on 40 acres outside Livingston, Montana. 3 bedrooms. A workshop twice the size of the one in Atlanta. A covered porch facing west toward the Absaroka Range. And sky. More sky than I had seen in 62 years of living on the ground. The first morning, I stood on that porch with coffee in my hands and watched the sun break over the mountains. Pink and gold spilling across a valley so wide, it made the world feel new. No neighbors within sight. No traffic noise. No memories embedded in the floorboards. I breathed. Deeply. Fully. And started over. The rhythm came slowly. Mornings in the workshop. Afternoons on the porch, or walking the property line. Evenings with books or music, or nothing at all. Silence was not empty here. It was a presence, a companion. The kind of quiet that asks nothing of you. Mac retired from the DEA in June. Moved to Bozeman, 40 minutes north. We played poker on Tuesday nights, with a few locals he had met through a veterans group. Low stakes. Cold beer. Conversations about fishing and weather and nothing that mattered. It was exactly what I needed. In August, I started the flying program. Wings of Hope. A nonprofit I funded through the trust, offering free flight instruction to at-risk teenagers in the Gallatin Valley. Kids from broken homes. Kids aging out of foster care. Kids who had never seen the world from above and did not know that perspective changes everything. We used a Cessna 172 I bought secondhand from a rancher in Billings. Single engine. 4 seats. The same model I had trained on 40 years earlier in the Air Force. Simple. Honest. An airplane that forgave mistakes. The first group was 6 kids. Ages 16 to 18. 3 boys. 3 girls. Suspicious at first. Quiet. The way young people are when adults have failed them repeatedly. And they have learned not to expect anything good. But something happens at 3,000 feet. The defensiveness falls away. The posture changes. You cannot maintain a tough exterior when the world below you looks like a painting and the sky above you stretches forever. One student, Marcus, 17, referred by his school counselor after his mother went to prison. He sat in the right seat during his 3rd lesson, hands steady on the yoke, and said something that stopped me. "Captain Harris, were you ever scared flying?" I thought about it. Not the easy answer. The real one. "Every pilot is scared sometimes," I said. "Fear is just information. It tells you to pay attention. Courage is not the absence of fear, Marcus. It is choosing to fly anyway." He nodded. Looked out the windshield at the mountains below us. Then said quietly, "My mom never chose anything good. But maybe I can." "Yeah," I said. "Maybe you can." I started therapy in September. Dr. Helen Morrison, a trauma specialist in Bozeman, who worked primarily with veterans, but agreed to see me after Mac made a call. Twice a month. 1 hour. Sitting in a leather chair in her quiet office talking about things I had locked away for a year. "The performance," she said during our 3rd session. 26 days of pretending. Acting blind. Acting weak. That takes a toll you may not have fully processed. "I know," I said. "Do you know? Or are you still performing?" Still being strong because you think that is what is required. I looked at the bookshelf behind her. Thought about the question. I do not know the difference anymore, I said. That is why we are here, she replied. To find it. Maria Santos lived on the neighboring ranch. 58. Veterinarian. Divorced for a decade. She had horses and 2 old dogs, and the kind of direct honesty that comes from spending more time with animals than people. We started with borrowed sugar and evolved into Saturday morning coffee on her porch or mine. She knew my story. Everyone in a small town knows eventually. But she never asked about it. Never probed. Just showed up with coffee and conversation about the weather and the horses and whether the creek would freeze early this year. Ordinary things. The currency of people rebuilding. It was not romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was presence. Human connection. Without agenda. And after a year of learning that the people closest to me had hidden agendas for years, connection without agenda felt like grace. The letter arrived in October, 1 year after the arrests. White envelope. Montana return address for the correctional facility. Derek's handwriting. The same slight rightward slant he had learned in elementary school. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at it for 15 minutes before opening it. The workshop was silent. The porch was empty. Montana stretched in every direction. There was no one to perform for. No audience. Just me and a letter from my son. I opened it. Dad, I do not know if you will read this. I would not blame you if you threw it away. I am not writing to ask for forgiveness. I am writing because I need you to know that I understand what I did. Not what Victor did to me, not what Mom did. What I did. I chose money over you. I chose debt over loyalty. I chose a con artist over my own father. I was 28 years old enough to know better, old enough to say no. And I did not. I think about the model airplane every day. Piedmont Park. The way you put your hand over mine on the controller. You were my co-pilot, buddy. I remember. I remember everything. I have 8 more years to sit with what I did. I do not know who I will be when I get out, but I hope he is someone you could recognize. I love you, Dad. I always did, even when I was too broken to show it. Derek. I read it twice, then folded it carefully along the original creases. Placed it in the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept things I was not ready to deal with. The divorce papers, the old photograph of the 3 of us at Disney World when Derek was 7, the sealed envelope from the lab with the chemical analysis of what Sharon put in my eyes. I did not write back. Not that day. Not that week. Maybe not for a long time. Maybe not ever. I did not know yet. And I had learned that not knowing was acceptable. That some questions did not require immediate answers, that healing was not linear, and forgiveness was not mandatory. I closed the drawer, poured more coffee, walked out to the porch. The mountains were turning gold with autumn. The sky was enormous and clear. A hawk circled somewhere above the tree line, riding thermals I could not see but knew were there. I was not the man I had been. Not the trusting husband. Not the proud father. Not the pilot with a perfect record and a future planned down to the month, but I was alive. I was free. I was learning to be something new. And for now, that was enough. 2 years after the arrests. A Tuesday morning in October. Clear skies over the Absaroka Range. Wind out of the west at 8 knots. Visibility unlimited. I sat in the left seat of the Cessna 172. The same aircraft I used for the Wings of Hope program. The same cockpit where Marcus and 5 other teenagers had learned that the world looks different from above. But today, the right seat was empty. Today was mine. My hands rested on the yoke. Steady. My eyes, fully healed now. 100% acuity in both. Scanned the instruments out of 30 years of habit. Oil pressure, fuel quantity, altimeter, airspeed indicator. Everything in the green. Everything where it should be. I had not flown solo since before the surgery. 26 months on the ground. The longest stretch without flight since I was 32 years old. Dr. Patel had cleared me medically 6 months earlier. The FAA had reinstated my private pilot certificate in spring. But I had waited. Not because I was afraid. Because I wanted this moment to mean something. I advanced the throttle. The engine climbed in pitch. The propeller pulled the aircraft forward along the grass strip behind my property. The wheels bumped over uneven ground. Speed built. 60 knots. 70. The yoke lightened in my hands, and then the earth fell away. The Cessna lifted into the Montana morning. The ranch shrank below me. The workshop. The porch. The fence line. Maria's property to the north. The creek, winding silver through the valley. All of it miniature. All of it distant. I climbed to 3,000 feet, leveled off, let the airplane settle into cruise flight. The engine hummed its constant note. The propeller turned its invisible circle, and through the windshield, the world opened in every direction. Mountains, sky, horizon. An infinite plain of blue with no walls and no ceiling, and no one telling me where to go. For 30 years, I flew for a living. Schedules and checklists and 700 passengers trusting me to bring them home safely. Every flight was responsibility. Every takeoff was obligation. Today I flew for myself. No schedule, no passengers, no destination. Just a man and a machine, and the sky that had always been his truest home. I banked gently to the south, followed the Yellowstone River toward Paradise Valley. The water caught the morning sun. The cottonwoods along its banks were turning gold. Below me, the world was beautiful and ordinary, and completely indifferent to everything I had survived. That was the gift. The world did not care about my pain. It just kept being beautiful. And if I let it, that beauty could fill the spaces where the grief had been. I thought about Sharon. Not with anger anymore. Not with love either. Just acknowledgement. She existed somewhere in a cell in Georgia, serving year 2 of 18. A woman I had once held in the dark and whispered promises to. A stranger now. A name on legal documents. Nothing more. I thought about Derek. His second letter had arrived in the spring. Shorter than the first. Less apology. More reflection. He was in a program for gambling addiction inside the facility. Had a counselor he trusted. Was reading books I used to recommend when he was a teenager. I still had not written back. But I had not thrown the letters away either. They sat in the drawer with everything else I was not yet ready to face. Maybe next year. Maybe in 5 years when he was eligible for parole. Maybe never. I had stopped pressuring myself to decide. I thought about Victor. Gregory Marston. Serving his 35 years in a federal facility in Pennsylvania. No parole. No visitors. No future beyond concrete walls and routine. 9 families destroyed. $12 million stolen. A career built on the systematic exploitation of trust. Ended by a man he thought was blind, and I thought about God. About the strange architecture of providence that had placed me in that dark bedroom at exactly the right moment, to hear exactly the right conversation. About the fact that my ears worked perfectly when my eyes did not. About Mac answering his phone on the second ring. About Catherine having an opening that week. About every small grace that had accumulated into survival. I do not understand why some people are given the tools to fight back, and others are not. I do not understand why those 8 families before me suffered alone, while I had Mac and Catherine and the resources to build a case. But I believe there is a wisdom in how things unfold. A design we cannot always see until we are far enough above it. Like a flight path that only makes sense when you look at the map afterward. God gave me 30 years of discipline in a cockpit. He gave me the temperament to stay calm when alarms went off. He gave me a friend in Mac who answered when I called, and he gave me the discernment to know that patience was not weakness. That silence was not surrender. That sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is endure without reacting until the moment is right. I am not a preacher. I am a pilot. But I know this much. Trust in God does not mean trusting blindly in people. It means trusting that you have been equipped to face whatever comes. And if you listen carefully enough, you will hear the guidance you need, even in the dark. Especially in the dark. I flew for an hour that morning. No radio. No contact with the ground. Just the engine and the wind and the mountains and the sky. At the end, I lined up with my grass strip and brought the Cessna down gently. The wheels touched. The aircraft rolled to a stop. The propeller wound down into silence. I sat in the cockpit for a long time, hands still on the yoke, eyes open, seeing everything. And to you listening to this story, here is what I want you to carry with you. When betrayal comes from the people you love most, your first instinct will be to confront, to explode, to let the hurt and the rage pour out of you in words you cannot take back. Do not do it. Not yet. Not until you are ready. Not until you are protected. Document everything. Hire the right professionals. Move your assets before they move theirs. And do not let anyone know you are awake until the trap is set and the evidence is airtight. Emotion is the enemy of survival. Strategy is its ally. Patience is not passive. It is the most active form of power available to a person under siege. I lost my wife. I lost my son. I lost 31 years of what I thought was a good marriage. But I kept my freedom. I kept my future. And I kept my dignity. Because I chose to think like a pilot instead of reacting like a victim. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And when the darkness comes, remember, your eyes will adjust. They always do. If this story reached you, if it made you think differently about trust or betrayal, or the quiet strength it takes to survive, I would be grateful if you shared your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Your support helps bring these stories to the people who need them most. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And remember, clear skies are not given. They are earned. One decision at a time. One day at a time. One flight at a time. That a time. A quick note. The stories shared here may contain fictionalized elements created for educational and storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. If this content is not for you, feel free to explore other material that better suits your preferences. I truly appreciate you being here.